And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who come in late, we are now having a little cooking session right here on the scene, putting the pot on in here. And we like for you to join in with us and have a ball.
Hi, this is Dara, and this is our final video in our series on how to manage our web projects in Notion. If you made it this far, congratulations. This was a long ride. But let's go ahead and go through. So by now, you guys, you know how to use the system. There's been many videos showing you how to do the ins and outs. And so for this video, I'm actually going to do a walkthrough of showing how I've, got my stories working and how I've created elements in the style library to match. So some of the things I did too is just to make it a little fun. I've added these. These are actually called Undraw is the site. So they have these little sketches that you can add around for different projects. And I've used that here to just add some visual fun to the project. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into first the stories that we're working on. So if you recall, when we began this journey, and actually let's go back up to the top. So when we began this journey, we had these personas, and in these personas we had our scenarios. And so the scenario that we had been working on was, Celine plans her meals. And from that we knew we were going to have to create a recipe page, among other things. All right. So from there we went ahead and created a story where we have that recipe page. So if we go to the roadmap view, we can see that that's got to be part of our MVP, right? We see we've collected it back to that scenario. And then underneath, we can see the tasks that we need to have happen. So the way that I ended up working with these is that I left the story in the grooming state because there's still things in here that need to be done. But if you open it up and you look inside, you'll see that let's close that, get that out of the way. And it's funny that these are not full width. All right, so you'll see that inside I've got, the development work we're getting ready to start, but we've actually completed the ERD and we've created a PDD. PDD is just a page description diagram. It's another content type, and you're going to see what that looks like and how that's different from the regular content types that we had. All right, so, and then the other thing that we were doing, I got all the way out. The other thing that we were doing is we started working on the design. So in our design, we, once we had those contents cleared, we went ahead and had a workshop. We created our color comps. We're getting ready to present these color comps, and we are starting to work on the specifications for the page. So if you open this up, you'll see that I'm actually linking to that page. The other place, before we leave our stories, the other place that I'm linking to this page is that when we get to the development, the developers will know that this is where they can find their specifications. So again, linking to that page. So it's really handy actually to have kind of, our sprint plan and process in the same place where a pattern library is, because we can do these things where we link across. All right, let's go ahead and see what's happened with with the library. All right, so we've gone through and we've actually finished our styles. So if you remember, before we started this journey, we had the pattern table in here to show that these were in process and everything lived in the table. The problem with things living in the table is that your breadcrumb is then kind of messed up, and you can people can get lost in the system. So once things are finished, we want to pull them out. So here we've got our colors, and I just did a screenshot so that I can have, because there's no way to create the colors here. I could have done maybe a code pin embed, but I just thought this would be just, fine enough to just go ahead and do the colors this way. All right, I've done the typography. And here I'm showing, what we're using and the fact that there is a media query, and it's 900 pixels. All right. And then also how you can use this, the just another hand, the fun script, that you just add a .fun font to make that work. So here I went ahead and I created a pen because there's no way to embed the fonts we're using. So this allows us to see, what that typeface looks like. And we can even get, obviously it's, this is not one where we have to copy paste. It's pretty obvious, but we can see exactly how it's classed out for use later. Iconography, we're just using Font Awesome, so I just put out a handy dandy Font Awesome link to get over there. You could put like your often or most used font icons. You could just state what they are. I actually did do that for one client site where, we use the carrots a lot. We use the magnifying glass for search and certain things like that we are always using. And so we put that on page, but then also linked over to the Font Awesome library. I guess the other thing we could put here for the developers, because we haven't technically created our CSS style sheet yet, so we could put the information on how they would add that to our styles. And then I got the logo, and I also have a zipped version of the logo so you can download and use it. All right, so that takes us through styles. For elements, I just kind of didn't really work on this section yet, but you get the idea how, like, once I finished an element, I would, pull that out here. But I do have my little kind of elemental graphic going on, so that's fun. All right, so I'm going to skip components and come back because I want to show you components coming from what's on the template. So let's do the template before we do that. So let's get to the content because this actually did work out to be pretty exciting in the end. So I have here my schemas. So the first schema that I started to build out was this allergen schema. It's still in process because Font Awesome only had icons for this, so I'll have to go and find icons for the rest of these. They did have a cow, which I could use the cow, but I really want to use like a bottle of milk. So anyway, so it gives us, we have the ID, we have their name, we have the file type, and this will be used in the design. So the idea is that the author would say, oh, this contains eggs, and then on the recipe page eggs would show up. Or we could do the opposite. We could say the eggs does not contain eggs, what have you. And see how now like my breadcrumb is taking me back to patterns instead of taking me back to content. So this is why once we finish, we definitely want to get it out of that table. All right, and then I put one for categories. I didn't actually put anything. I started putting. I don't know that this needs to be a table in that same way. Categories would be something that we would create as we go, as also. So I just had some ideas of what categories would look like, and then tags would be another one type of schema that would grow. And this actually, you want this for your taxonomy because these two are going to, all three of them actually is how you're going to help, search. So it's really actually important that they are separate type of content than these content types. All right, so then I went in and I did the recipe content type. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And here what we have is actually the spec view. All right, so I've got all the information showing here for looking at this. But if I swap it around and just do the authoring view, like it's pretty clean. I mean, this is fun. Like it's just showing me what the author needs to do. So I might pull this table somewhere else and show that authoring view for authors. Like maybe there's an authoring section that we create. All right, and then so the page description diagram for the recipe page is actually different. That's what I found as I designed it. So on here, what I wanted to think about is what are the things that I wanted to have on the page. So not the fields, but the objects. So these are the things that we're having that are related to the recipe itself, right? And of course, when you saw that content type, you saw that it went into more detail about what each of these things are and do. This is actually like a whole module, right? As well as the nutrition facts. And then I wanted to be able to put like some related items. So that's kind of what this is doing. It's describing what's going to be on the page, and versus the content type, which describes what content is available that can then end up on the page. That will make more sense when you see the design. The other thing that I did is here I have the content type for the featured chef. And I ended up putting in an extra column which is called profile small. So there's two ways that I'm going to end up showing this content, and one is going to be on the featured chef, like on their bio page, and the second is going to be like a small module that's shown, in various places. And so I wanted to show the difference between what's going to be on, this long bio is not going to fit in the short page, but then we'll have the short bio there. So anyway, so you'll see that as well. Let me show the design. All right, so come back out. We have some responsive layouts, and you'll see that I've finished region 7, right? And so it's got this featured area, it has a body, and it has a rail, and you can see how it's responsive. And I just gave the template grid here, 65, 65, 35, and 100% on mobile, and probably medium. So this is a thing. I actually, you notice that as you go through, I just show you the small and I show you the large. I find that the medium is actually really hard to design for, and it is a flat object. I like to work with the developer and figure out, like, where does it break? Like, if it's mobile first, and I design the small, like, where does it look ridiculous in that medium breakpoint that I might want it to start to look more like the large, like that component is going towards a large. So this is something that I work with the developer to figure out. And then I've got the pages that use this template, which is the recipe. All right, so let's go back up and let's take a look at the recipe template. All right. So I still have this as in progress because there's one thing left to do, and I wanted to go ahead and do that with you guys. But here I've got my overview. I'm showing that it's region 7, so I can link back to region 7. I took that content, the PDD, and I actually just pasted it over here, but I put it in which region it belonged in. So once, so it's kind of the guidance that, in our content phase, we're saying what is the important things to have on this page, but then in the design page, I'm actually figuring out, in the design phase, I'm actually figuring out what it is that, where everything belongs on the page. Okay, and here are my designs. So I've got the mobile, and I've got the desktop view. Okay. And then here I've got my page level functionality. So we talked about that. So on page load, you got to make sure that this, this is the content that's coming directly related to the recipe, but then we want to make sure that this stuff is also filled in based off of its relationship to this. Let's go back and look at that. Stories. Oops, I said stories, so I went to stories. Style guide, design library, content types, especially because as I just thought about, there is a content piece that's missing from the recipe, which is the who authored it, so the user ID. And that is required and searchable. Okay. I feel better. All right, so now, and this is actually why specs are important, because when you write specs, you find where you have holes in either your design or your documentation or both. Like I had a search functionality I did where we put like search tips, and we never actually said what happened when you clicked on the link search tips, and we figured that out when we were doing the specifications. So that's why that's important. All right, so then I go here and I've got, so like I said, I had the page level functionality. So I want to just, for the page specifications, let's just, link to that content spec that we've already created. Like, why do that again? So I'm going to say link, and it was the recipe. Helps if I spell content type. Now this is a weird thing. So sometimes like it messes up the columns coming over. Like it always wants to put the name first, but even all the rest of the stuff is not in the order that we had it. That is something that's a little bit of annoyance, but that's okay. I can deal with that. It doesn't take long to move stuff around. All right. Somehow that's wrong. Because this doesn't have a number. And it's funny, it came in not quite upside down. Let's sort. Oh, this is the weird thing about sorting. I made it a text field. I think originally when you watched me set it up, I made this a number field, but then I wanted to do this 2B, and if I do 2B, then it's a text field and not a number. Maybe I'll just do 2.1 and make it a number. Now, so I'm doing this live, which means I messed. No, this is the one content type. It's not, it's no other place except here. And so the changes that I'm making here are also happening here, but that's okay because this the only, it's not like if I did it to the patterns table, that would be not advisable. So let's go ahead and now sort this by the ID. And that turns out right. Okay, back in business. All right, so that, so now I've got like the different modules, and eventually I want to link the modules over. The only one that I've created so far is the profile small. So let's go take a look at that module. And so I've got my overview. I actually have a little code pin here that shows what it looks like if someone wants to grab it. So I'm writing everything in Pug instead of HTML, so they can just grab this, paste it somewhere, and fill out what they need here. So it would be if it's a static site, it would just be updating this information. But if it's a dynamic site, we would put in whatever calls we need to the database to get this information, right? All right, you go away. I've got the functionality, and then here I have that same featured chef content table, but what I've done here is I filtered to only show me the things that are related to the small profile, right? Which is really cool. And then I hid that field because obviously they'll all be checked, so we don't need it. But it works really well that I could just pull this over and show what I need to show here for this component. Let's see, the other components that I started working on is this card group. And so I kind of filled out this information. All my cards have the ability to use these aspects. And then I did like the card wide. This is actually complete. And so you can, again, come in and grab the HTML. So you would never really need to grab the styles because, the styles are going to be built into our CSS. So if you're calling everything by the right class, then that's all you need to do. You don't need to do anything else. And the other one that I had in there was the card carousel. And I put this is a good example of, I don't actually know how it works. So this is what I want. I want to use this plugin, and I've got the documentation linked here, but the developers are going to have to come in and explain this to the other developers because, I don't have any clue. I don't know jQuery. I don't know JavaScript. JavaScript and I were not friends. We don't get along. We've tried. We've had many sessions together, and while we're in session, we understand each other, and then when session's over, we're like, no, I don't like you. You're not my friend. Go away. So, I can code in Java and PHP, but I can't do JavaScript. I don't know why. It doesn't work for my brain. But anyway, long about story to say, like, this is how, we're building out our library. So you can already see how once a pattern is completed, I'm pulling it out to create this wiki structure. But then while it's still in process, it's just going to be down here. And of course, then, your users can be coming through the site through the wiki space, the wiki pages, but then your admin, your librarians can be coming in through this way, and then they can see the status of, how things are going, or, what types of things we have going on. I guess you wouldn't need to see this. There'd be no pattern type. What types of things do we have in the system? Cool. And then, so now if I go back to our stories. Oh, I didn't actually mark it as done. Let's have the satisfaction of marking that as done. Let's go back in there. Completed. Technically, I still want to go back and put those links in, but there's nothing else to say here except to, link to that module once we have the definition of that module. But I'm going to go ahead and mark that as done. And then let's go back to our stories, and we can actually now say that, maybe it's in review, and maybe I'm going to ask, our lead developer to take a look and make sure that, he's agreeing with what we've got here. We don't need this. And that's it. I've now created a whole web project within Notion. You see that it can be done. We've got our project admin spaces with staff and meetings. We've got, our personas with scenarios. We've got our style guides with the pattern library in there. And hopefully eventually, our brand guidelines, tone of voice, and digital aesthetics will also live there. And we've got our, project tracker with our stories. So it's been a great ride. It was fun. This video has taken a very long time to create all these things, but I hope it's useful. I hope it shows, the power of just what you can do in Notion and how you can keep all of the things of your project together and make it dynamic so that each piece of your, project directory is talking to another piece of your project directory. Y'all take care. I'm going to bed. Good night.